Welcome to another episode of the Two for One podcast. I'm your host, Dion, alongside Nate. And today we're joined by a very special guest. He is the host of the Basketball Buds podcast, as well as the Cinephobe podcast. He writes perhaps NBA media's most influential NBA power rankings. He is the biggest advocate I know for Heat culture. It is Zach Harper of The Athletic. Zach,
On the
first and foremost, thank you for your time today. Hope you're doing well. I
Yeah,
saw that you're coming back from Hawaii recently. How was that?
it was great, man. It was my friend's wedding. We were in Honolulu. It is a lovely place, a beautiful place, also like one of the weirdest places I've ever been.
Really?
Like just
No,
it's
that makes sense. My cousin lives there. He cool dude. Not like he's a little weird. We love weird people, but yeah,
yeah,
Hawaii's a little out there.
yeah. It was just I'd been to Hawaii like I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, and not to the Honolulu part of it. And so it was just, man, there were just it was a nightlife culture I was not prepared for. That's I'll
Wow.
just say
Okay.
that. It was like there was one woman who got she was wearing a walking boot, and she got kicked out of a club apparently, and we weren't even at this club. We were just trying to get pizza at 2 a.m.
Mhm.
outside of it. And man, she threatened everybody. She threatened everybody, and
Oh,
she was, I don't know, maybe 90 pounds. Like she was a tiny person.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a bizarre moment. But the wedding was awesome. My friend got married. She said yes to him. So
Right.
that's all that mattered.
Yeah. That's the
Yeah.
important
as
part. Yeah.
long no injuries sustained from this 90 pound woman with the leg
No,
brace. Or
no,
no.
she came up to us at one point and was just like yelling, right? Like not at us, just yelling in general. And
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, that's crazy. Like that's all I said to her, like just trying to move it along. She might
Right.
have been on meth, I don't know. And then she like grabbed my hand. She's like, "Thank you for being so honest." And then walked away. And I'm like, "I don't know what's going on here, man." Like she was out
Wow.
of mind. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a
What an
good story to
experience.
tell, though.
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, for
something
sure.
that stays with you forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. All right. Well, before we get into sort of like the nitty-gritty of the episode, wanted to ask you just a couple questions about yourself.
Sure.
Of course, you've been at the Athletic for many years now, but what was your path like to get there? How'd you sort of get your start in the sports industry and how'd that lead you, to the Athletic?
I was working in a court of appeals in the clerk's office, and I was pretty bored. I was pretty bored, and I hated my
Can
job. And
imagine. Yeah.
it was a good job. It just wasn't what I wanted to do. And so this is when was this? This was like July of 2007. I just decided like, all right, I'm gonna figure out how to make a website. I want to write about basketball. And so I made a website, and I would get all my work done in the morning. For like the first 2 hours of work, I would get it all done, and then I'm just like sitting around like, oh, I guess I'll write. I guess I'll try to build this website. I guess I'll try to learn coding and all this stuff.
Hmm.
And a couple of years later, the right people read it. I got an offer. It wasn't for pay, but it was just the opportunity to start a Kings blog for the True Hoop Network for ESPN. And I did that. And then I just decided, I was like, all right, I think I might be able to figure this out. So I quit my job, gave myself a year to figure it out. And I got lucky enough that at that time, ESPN had started this nightly chat called the Daily Dime Live. And the good news about that was they would bring in all the bloggers from all the different teams when their team was playing, go chat with people on ESPN.com. And the great part about that was that none of the editors that actually worked for ESPN wanted to do this. So I just started showing up, even on nights where the Kings weren't playing, and I just started showing up throughout the whole playoffs. And then they offered me a job to run that chat, and so I did that for a couple of years. Worked my way into CBS Sports. Um, After that, worked there for 4 years. Worked at this place called FanRag Sports, which is a horrible name, but it was a cool group of people to work with. Did that for like a year and a half, and then found my way to the Athletic. Found some radio gigs in between, and did podcasts and all that stuff. And I just I stuck with it and decided I don't care how many people hate what I do. I'm gonna figure out how to do it.
Love that.
That's
Yeah.
a good mentality to have.
Yeah,
Getting into things, obviously, I think everyone looks up to people. You get into things because you're inspired by others. Is there
for sure.
anyone either stylistically or writing or your personality wise that you kind of, picked off of in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone my age, so I'm 42, like everyone my age at some point was reading Bill Simmons every time he wrote, right? Like I'm not trying to be shitty or anything, but like I haven't consumed a Bill Simmons thing in probably 10 years at this point, but he was very influential in just in terms of voice and how people were starting to write it on the internet or even just talk about sports in general. Probably like the two biggest like writers were Ralph Wiley, who was just one of the greatest, and then uh David Aldridge, who I'm lucky enough to work with now. Like I like there's a I can't remember what spurred this, but we were on maybe a some kind of group Zoom or something like that years ago, and I just kind of started. I knew David a little bit, but we had talked, and this big like athletic NBA group Zoom, and we're just shooting the shit, and at one point I offered up. I was like, I think Klay Thompson's way better than Reggie Miller, and I think if you give Klay Thompson what Reggie Miller's teams were in the '90s, like they would have been better, and blah blah blah. And Da, as nice as he is, was like, "Are you out of your mind?" And it's not a crazy take now, but obviously Reggie's just got this certain cachet. Klay was still, still Klay, but he was maybe not the guy that we're like, why didn't he make top 75
Right.
at the time? And I remember thinking like, oh, that's cool. Like Da just like kind of eviscerated in a nice way what I had to say. Like that felt like a moment to me.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. So for like the bulk of what I wanted to get into today, I
Mhm.
wanted to really have a discussion about a change in the NBA that officially took place over a year ago, but I think it's something that we're starting to see some of the ramifications of now. It's the implementation of this new second apron salary cap rule.
Mhm.
This put just a huge restriction on team building across the NBA. Now, none of us are Larry Kuhn, so we'll avoid diving into like the minutia about all the rules and regulations. But essentially, what's going on is teams are no longer restricted simply by luxury tax bills anymore. You can't just spend your way around using every exception that there is available to build out your team. So instead, there's new restrictions, to restrict your access to those exceptions. Things like your mid-level exception, trade exceptions, getting your pick moved back to in the first round, things like that. Tons of new penalties that the Steve Ballmers and the Joe Lakeups of the world
Mhm.
can't just pay their way out of. So I wanted to get your take on sort of how that's impacted the NBA, and I want to start by asking you, what problem do you think that the NBA is trying to solve here?
That's a great question. I don't even think they know. Like
Yeah.
this is the issue with every new collective bargaining agreement is the owners, and I think this has become more an issue with new owners, right? With the influx of these tech bros who make billions of dollars, and that your Matt Ishbia's, Para in Memphis, like all these guys, Joe Lacob, like you have these guys who are used to like I win and I get my way in business and all this stuff, and then turns out it's hard to build an NBA champion, even for like Joe Lacob did it and still is like complaining about stuff, right?
Hmm.
Um, it's hard, which by the way, it should be hard to build a champion. I don't believe in parity. I think parity sucks. I think parity is for losers. I think parity is for people who don't like who don't have a drive to want to work for winning and for being successful. I think parity is so stupid when it comes to the NBA. I get why it works for football. I get why it works for baseball to a certain degree. I don't know anything about hockey, so I couldn't tell you if it works for hockey. I don't know anything about that, but I
No.
think I think it sucks. Like I think parody sucks. I think they've tried to create this faux sense of parody,
Right.
and in doing so, they've been like, okay, well, how did the Warriors get so good? They were dominating basketball for a while. Well, first it was how did the Heat get so good? That's not fair. They teamed up. All right, let's try to knock that down. Well, hold on a second. We have this team that was built organically, and then they went and signed Kevin Durant. That's not fair. Let's knock that down. Like they just act like babies. They act like petulant children who didn't get their way, and so they keep trying to find these ways to make things more complicated for their, quote unquote opposition, their enemies, whatever. But all it does is shoot themselves in the foot. And so, with every collective bargaining agreement, they find some new thing to be dumb about, and then it'll take about a year or two, and then the agents will figure out how to exploit these loopholes in the system,
Right.
and they'll get their guys paid, and they're still getting guys paid, right? We're seeing record contracts because that's how inflation works. um, but I think they're trying to create parity and knock down the idea of a dynasty without understanding that we have decades and decades and decades of evidence that show the NBA is at its best when there is a dynasty or a threatening dynasty and people are trying to take it down on a basketball court and not on a spreadsheet.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think parity is the biggest point there. Like it does in a unique way sort of work for the NFL, but like you said, yeah, we have all the evidence to suggest that it's not beneficial for the NBA, and it feels like that's what they were trying to do here. And
Mm-hmm.
by trying to solve that problem, I think they've created other problems as well, where a big issue, at least from what Adam Silver will tell us, a big issue with the NBA is trying to create a sense of continuity, trying to prevent superstars from jumping around or whatever. But now with the second apron, it becomes much, much harder for a team to actually keep all their guys together. Like we're going to see it with the Celtics, I think after this season, like they're not going to be able to keep all these guys together. So I think they're trying to solve problems and creating new ones in the process in a lot of ways.
It's tough too because then you ask these teams, it takes so long to obviously, build a championship team. And then you have all these windows now for the opportunity. It feels like they're being shrunken down into like 2, 3 years, where if you don't win it within 2 to 3 years, these players that are going to keep getting better and playing well within a team that's doing well. But if they don't win that championship, then they're probably going to lose those guys. And I feel like it just almost defeats the purpose. Doesn't it defeat the purpose of kind of, spending all this years and these draft picks and everything of actually trying to build this championship team because you don't have much time to do something with it?
100%. It's so stupid. Like the system that they've created is so stupid, and it is counterproductive to what they say they want of like keeping teams together. Like no, like the Thunder aren't going to be able to keep that team together.
Right.
They have, I don't know, 3 years, right, before those extensions really have to come in, and it starts pushing them well beyond that apron. It's why you saw the structure of the Isaiah Hartenstein contract the way it was. Like it's solving a problem that didn't really exist by creating a new problem that shouldn't exist. And so with, it, if they were going, and here's the frustrating thing about it is like, this is it. This is here to stay for the entirety of this collective bargaining. Like you can't really do anything about it. And so we're just going to have to live in this. And we don't tend to see things get repealed or get pulled back at all, right? Like they find different pathways for moving forward with whatever, once it was the max deals and then it was, the luxury tax and all this stuff. And now the second apron, there will be other different ways that it goes, but it won't go backwards where it needs to go. And so the issue that they then create is the way that they could solve it is what I should say is if you are re-signing your own players, it should not count dollar for dollar against the second apron and all that stuff. Like that is the way to fix this horrible system that they've created. If if that comes up around the collective bargaining agreement, which I imagine it will, but also like as the thing I have like, don't get me wrong, like I blame the owners for this mostly, but the players union also like didn't do themselves any favors. And I get it, like they still get a certain percentage of the basketball revenue, right? So that like that BRI is always going to be at 51% for them pretty much. So they're still going to get their money, but what they have done is priced out essentially like the middle class earners or that lower middle class earner in terms of NBA players. And so you're either on a minimum, taking a deal to like go try to chase a championship for someone, or you're stuck on a bad team making good money, which is great, but it doesn't create the competition and the competitiveness and I guess the forward momentum that most teams or players would want to create. And so I blame the union for this too. I think they took a bad deal to avoid a hard cap, which what the NBA has been trying to establish for a long time. But it could be solved or at least lessened how bad it is by just like, all right, you've had this player you're now on a second or third contract. It's going to count 75% towards the second or whatever that number needs to be. And I just like, I look at it, I'm like, this offseason kind of sucked. No offense to Sixers fans who get the Paul George stuff and all that stuff, but like this offseason sucked. It's because everyone's afraid of the second apron. Like I talk to people, I talk to executives, I talk to league officials, I talk to people at Summer League. I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, well, they're still trying to figure it out. They're still trying to feel things. I was like, no, it sucks. Like you guys have ruined this.
I think, well, talking about like one loophole, obviously, is having a guy like Jalen Brunson, who's obviously worth a lot more money than he just got, taking a massive pay cut. Do you think now that's going to be a trend that we start to see? Are there going to be guys that are now willing to take that pay cut, or is Jalen Brunson a 1 in a million case scenario?
I think it'll happen a couple of times. I don't think as dramatically as this. I think this is, if he was just on a good Knicks team that didn't have a bunch of his college friends, I don't think he does this. I think they see this greater plan, like, oh, we all wanted to play together. Now we're together. How do we keep that going under these rules? And he's already, there's been some fear, some talk, I guess, that, oh, he's going to get the Isaiah Thomas treatment if he gets injured and he's not going to get this, next big payday. Well, he's already gotten his big payday. Like Isaiah Thomas didn't make zero money, but he didn't get that one
Right.
giant.
They
Brinks
they
truck,
never
right?
backed up the Brinks truck for him. Yeah,
Right. They apparently they backed it up over his hip, or Danny Ainge did, but that was it. Like they never gave him the money, and so I don't think we're gonna have that potential disaster with Jalen Brunson, but he's made his money. He'll have made hundreds of millions of dollars, and good for him. He's totally worth it. He's worth more than what he signed for. But I think for the most part, we have a clear history of you may see a little bit of sacrifice here and there. Every once in a while, you get a Tim Duncan or you get a Dirk Nowitzki who's like, yeah, whatever, I made enough money, go for it. Maybe that happens, with a star here or there, but we have a pretty clear history of like, no, go get your max, go get as much as you can for as long as you can. Go do the Carmelo Anthony thing, go do now the Jaylen Brown thing. Like, I think that is still going to be the trend.
Yeah, I think maybe the way we could see guys take pay cuts is in more of like the Tyus Jones example, where he kind of settles for the minimum contract to go to the Suns, play on like a more of a contending team. I think maybe we could see that happen more often, especially like you said before, teams. It's kind of like eliminating the middle class of NBA players in terms of the salaries. I think, yeah, the Jalen Brunson thing is probably a pretty unique case, but in terms of like a Tyus Jones type player, I think maybe we could see that happen more often.
Yeah, and I think the problem with Tyus is just like he just had bad timing. If he's a free agent last year or or next year, he probably gets the payday that he deserves. Orlando essentially had a decision like, are we going to go after a point guard or are we going to go after KCP? Well, they knew they could get KCP at that number, and so they got him, right? And it's a great signing, but they still kind of need a point guard. The other options were essentially does Utah want to spend their money? No. Okay, shit. Who else has money that they could spend? Well, Charlotte's got LaMelo Ball. If they have any flexibility, they're not going to do it, right? Like Philadelphia was going after the guys they were going after, and so Tyus essentially was trapped with like, all right, I could do the Kuzma thing and I could re-sign with the Wizards and hope they deal me, or all right, I take a pay cut and I go try to win a championship with the Suns or a team like that, and they're probably not going to win a championship, but it's the right kind of fit, right? And then he gets to hope like, all right, let's see who has money next summer, and maybe then he gets his payday. But that's also the tricky part with point guards is a lot of good point guards in the league.
Yeah, right.
I think I want to pump the brakes on the Suns thing. I'm not going to say they're championship favorites. I think people aren't talking about them though enough now with ties because I actually kind of like their depth, which is something I hated about them last season.
Right.
But like Royce O'Neal, they have Ryan Dunn. I think will make an impact as a rookie because of his defense. Mason Plumlee's a very good backup big man. They have Monte Morris as a backup point guard, so their point guards are two of the most efficient playmakers in the league.
For sure.
I really do kind of like their depth, and I'm wondering too if maybe somehow they get Bradley Beal to come off the bench. I know it won't happen probably, but I'd love to slide like Royce O'Neal into that starting lineup, and I really think it's a good starting lineup.
It sounds great. Is Bradley Beal going to be healthy? Is Kevin Durant going to be healthy?
Exactly.
Like those are the issues I have. Is Nurk going to be able to be consistent with his body? Like I think Nurk gets kind of crapped on a little too much on the internet, but because I think he's really good, but also like his body is only capable of so much. And to me, it's more about health. I do like I don't think Mike Budenholzer is a good playoff coach. I think he struggles a lot there. But if they buy in to the systems that he wants to do on both ends of the floor, they will be a much better team than last year. Like that, Mike Budenholzer is a great regular season coach. And then you hope, all right, well, we have Kevin Durant, we have Devin Booker, we have Bradley Beal. Let's see if they can carry us through the postseason. They got swept last year, but that was, a little bit different.
Yeah. I definitely like their chances much better this season for sure. Yeah. So before we get you out of here, I wanted to ask you just a couple other questions. We'll bounce around a little bit. So today there was some Olympic basketball quarterfinal action going on. The USA takes down Team Brazil. That was just after Team France, I'll say, upset Team Canada. I definitely expected Canada to win that game.
Okay.
Based on the way France had been playing up to that point. I like coming into the Olympics, I thought France were the biggest threat to the US, but based on how they played in like the lead up games, I was very unimpressed. So
well, let me ask you a question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Based on what happened today, do we think they tanked that last game of group play to put them in a position to play Canada early? Because if you were going to play Canada early, that would be better than running into them in a medal game.
I'd say maybe. I can't see them taking a game in front of their home crowd. That's like
it's an interesting theory though.
I like it's interesting.
The hat Zach's got on for sure.
Yeah,
it might be.
Also, like, no offense to Team Canada, they're obviously very good. SGA is amazing. Lou Dort is amazing.
RJ Barrett's amazing.
I saw Dwight Powell as a starting center. I didn't exactly think, don't want to face Canada.
No, that's definitely fair. Yeah, I was a little
Yeah.
disappointed when I found out Zach Edey was not going to play for them. Hopefully, he does suit up in the next Olympics. But I wanted to ask you, given that there's only a few teams left, who do you think has the best chance to take down Team USA at this point?
I think it would be France, just because they have incredible length and just rim protection is at a premium, right? And we saw today with the way they played, like it wasn't Wemby went for 30 and Gobert had a double double and Evan Fournier hit 6 threes or anything. Like Lasort and Yabusele just bullied
Just big boy
everybody
them.
on
Just
Canada. Yeah,
big boy them.
just
Yeah.
just you can't do anything against me.
Hmm.
You are not strong. Like you got to go hit the weight room, right? And not that not that Team USA is necessarily susceptible to that, but if I was going to construct a team that takes down Team USA, one, you have to have shooters. France has pretty, I mean, what's the dude's name? Cordinier. Like
Yeah,
if
yeah,
he
yeah.
plays like that against Team
Right.
USA, that's massive. If Evan Fournier can hit shots, I'm not so convinced on that. That's massive. Batum is timely with shooting. Wemby can hit some outside shots. It would have that. It would have bullies, and it would have length. And France does have a lot of that. Now, I don't think they could keep up with Team USA in terms of just pace of the game. If they're sloppy with the ball at all, Team USA is going to be up 20 in no time.
Yeah.
But Wemby is so good. Like, I'll put it this way. Um, there was a stretch of Olympics where I did not root for American sprinters because Usain Bolt was so good. I was like, I just want to see that dude break records. I don't even care. I don't even care about the national pride thing anymore. Like none of that. Like I don't want any of these Americans. I want to see Usain Bolt. I want to see him dominate. Like that. That's how special he was. Wemby is not there yet. But in 2028, we might be in a situation where Wemby is so damn good and so damn impactful that Team USA is in trouble. I don't think it's going to happen this time, but because of that factor, like France, I think is the only team that can truly scare them. Serbia is still very good, and Jokic, kind of turned it on in overtime there and made some special plays over like a 90-second to 2-minute run in overtime that helped Serbia put away a really good Australia team. But I don't think anybody can keep up with the depth of Team USA. I've said this the whole time. I don't believe the world is caught up. I believe when Team USA brings their best team and they care, there's nothing anyone can do about it, and that's what I expect to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, even the past two games you've seen, they definitely clicked more. It seems like things are starting to get better. Like I said, Kevin Durant being back, I think, is like the world of difference
Yeah.
just because him on Team USA is just ridiculous.
Yeah. He
It's unfair. I
became
mean, what do you do? Like, all right, we're gonna cover Steph, we're gonna cover Booker, and LeBron's doing this, and Embiid's hitting threes, or AD at the rim, and Kevin Durant is there. Like,
Mhm.
that sucks. That sucks for the rest of the world. It's great for us though.
And coming off the bench too. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
Is like you get a few minutes into the game, you're like, whew, Team USA, man, and then the 7 foot
Right.
fucking Slim Reaper checks into the game. It's crazy.
Right. Here's one of the 5 greatest scorers ever coming off the bench.
Yeah, yeah.
Come
He
on.
just
Yeah.
became the Team USA's all-time leading scorer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in a sort of a similar vein, more towards the NBA though, who do you think has the best chance to take down the Celtics? Now this could be maybe in the Eastern Conference or even just the finals, but who do you think is the biggest threat to them for a repeat?
I'm very interested in if anyone in the East is going to take them down. I like this Knicks team a lot. I don't think they quite have the size to handle a healthy Celtics team. So I'm not going to say the Knicks. There's, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm very intrigued by year 2 of Dame and Giannis. Like I
I'm with you.
don't think that I like Doc Rivers is not a good coach. We got to do. I get
Yeah,
that Kevin Garnett dragged his ass to a title in 2008, and ever since then we've just been like, yeah, Doc's the best, and he's not. He struggles so much, game to game, quarter to quarter in playoff scenarios as a coach. So I don't buy into that. But Giannis is amazing. I think Dame is going to have a massive year now that he's more comfortable in where he is and not going through quite the same stuff that he was going through. He's got a summer of actually training as opposed to last year. Some depth issues there. They can't survive too many injuries, and I'm a little worried about Chris Middleton's body. But I think if I was going to pick someone out of the East, it would have to be Milwaukee as the best chance. And even then, I'm not confident in that. Out of the West, I mean, there's probably 4 teams in the West I think could take down the Celtics in an NBA Finals. But all right, then the Celtics made the NBA Finals second straight year, third time in 4 years. They've already got a title. Like that's not the most embarrassing thing for them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know Nate's a little upset that you didn't pick his Knicks. He is a Knicks fan, so
They're really good. Like I
No,
gotta see.
they're valid
Yeah,
points. Because if
yeah,
Mitchell Robinson goes down, then what the hell do you
right.
do? Because then
That's
you
the
have to play
concern I
Jericho
have.
Sims, and everyone cries.
I mean, look, I want to like I want Jericho
I
Sims
do
to be
too.
a
I
thing.
wish in theory, he's a cool basketball player. In theory, he'd be a
Absolutely.
lob threat, athletic, maybe protect the rim.
Yeah.
No.
In application, he is by God, why he's on the floor right now. If you're not up 30, like why is he out there?
Yeah.
I want to see what happens with Randall. Like I want to see what happens with his role, how he embraces this like Nova Knicks culture while still being, like I'm not the biggest Julius Randle guy, but like he matters. He at least matters through getting them through the regular season. If they're
100%.
healthy, if Mitchell Robinson's healthy, I'm intrigued by it. But I think they need like one more creator on the perimeter to truly like upset what Boston does defensively.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the Bucks. I definitely think they're a team that is not being talked about enough as a contender.
Yeah.
I think people are sort of just like wiping away like, oh, Dame, he had this bad season and now it's kind of over for him. I think he's going to bounce back in a huge way.
For sure.
I
Because his
definitely
mental too. It was
Yeah.
like it was the whole thing. Like he went through a lot, like the divorce. He was in a city that he didn't know anyone. It was,
Yeah.
you have to look at the human aspect of it too. And we talked about that on a previous episode. I also think Gary Trent Jr. is a really, really good signing that didn't
That's a
get even nearly
great-
enough love.
Great pickup. It's a great pickup. I was unfortunately on vacation when it happened, so I didn't give a shit about tweeting about it or writing about it. But that's one of those like Tyus Jones-esque, like, how did you get a bargain of this? Like Gary Trent Jr. is a 40% 3-point shooter and a great defender. He's only 6'4", but whatever. He can defend up to guys that are 6'8". Like that's such a brilliant pickup.
Yeah. I think him and DeLon Wright to get those guys for the minimum, like it's really impressive what the Bucks were able to do this offseason given like the limited resources they had.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go on the negative side of things because it's always fun to be negative.
Yes, that's
Do
way
you have
more
any
fun.
what's your like? Do you have a number one signing or trade that happened this offseason that you absolutely hate that you think is garbage that you wish never happened?
That I wish didn't happen.
Okay, it's just the worst thing you hate the most.
I'm just look. I don't believe in the Sixers. I get why
I'm
they
so
signed
glad.
Paul George.
I knew we had you on for a reason, Zach. I knew we had you on for a
I
reason.
get why it happened. I get why Sixers fans are excited. You swapped out Tobias Harris for Paul George. It's a great upgrade. At the same time, I don't know that I could look at a Sixers team that can't get out of the second round, that has never had a great series start to finish from Joel Embiid. He had a pretty good series against the Knicks in terms of numbers, but he was nowhere to be found in the fourth quarter of games. He was like, he had the 150-point game, right? It was incredible, but he was so out of gas and so out of shape by the time halfway through the fourth quarter came. Like, you just knew, all right, we got to stop maxing, and that's it. Like, he doesn't have it, right? And it was such an easy game plan for the Knicks to execute. The two best series in Embiid's career were against the Wizards and against the Hawks in terms of playoff series. He's 1-1 in those series because they blew that series against the Hawks. Like, I know Joel Embiid is one of the best players in the world. I know he's one of the best big men in the world. I know he could be a historic player, but we have got to see it in the postseason before I even give a damn about a playoff Sixers team. And seeing all those problems and going, you know what? You know that guy that got outplayed by Joe Ingles a couple of times in playoff series? Let's go that'll solve the problems. Like, no, that's not how that works in the slightest. They're upgraded. They're better than they were. It was the deal they had to do because that's what was there. That was the available free agent, but I'm not buying the Sixers in the slightest.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. They definitely maxed out in terms of what they could have done. Like, Paul George was definitely the big fish for free agency, and I think they did a really good job of piecing the depth together. But yeah, exactly. Like, we're talking about a team led by Joel Embiid, and now we're adding Paul George, and we're supposed to expect that they're going to perform in the playoffs. Not to mention, like, the fact that it's all just put together. Like, year one, like, these teams do not see success like that. So
it's so rare. Yeah,
I couldn't have less faith in the Sixers. As
oddly enough, I do like the Andre Drummond signing. I'm like,
yeah,
if he can take minutes,
he had a great year last year.
Can rebound, like
Drum dog millionaire. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, I don't want to get kicked out of basketball Twitter or anything like that, but I've never cared about Paul Reed as a backup center. I'm sorry, like I just don't buy it. And so you have swapped him out with someone who has size and rebounds and can dunk, and yeah, has some like Shaq in a fool moments every once in a while. But who cares? Like he could actually help, Embiid get
Mhm.
healthier by the postseason.
And has familiarity too. Like he played for the Sixers in the past. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think they did a really good job filling out the roster, but I have a very hard time believing that they're going past the second round.
Yeah. If they get to the second round, I think that's an accomplishment for the team.
It's great. And
Because
then
the East is not good, but it's top heavy.
Also,
Yes,
who are your top 5 seed prediction then? So if you had to rank it 1 through 5, because I feel like the top 5 consensus right now are, Celtics, Knicks, Sixers, Bucks, Magic.
I would go. I mean, Celtics obviously number one.
Mhm.
I think the Knicks will probably be the 2 seed. Bucks 3 seed. Probably the Cavs and I think the Cavs and the Magic will be like in that 4-5 area. But yeah, like Sixers are probably a 6 seed to me.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if Embiid's gonna be healthy.
Exactly. No, that's because they're never healthy in the regular season, so they always fall.
If you tell me he's going to play 65 games, all right, yeah, pencil me in for like the 2 or 3 seed for the
Sure.
Sixers. But again, I still wouldn't pick him in the playoffs.
I hope, like, if I was a Sixers fan, I hope he doesn't play 65 games. I'd much rather them, like, they coddle him through the regular season and just hope that he can stay healthy for the playoffs. Like, he got his MVP. Like, I wouldn't be worried about the regular season if I'm.
I think I'm willing to extend my Kawhi Leonard plan of I think Kawhi Leonard's training camp should start January 1st. Like, let the Clippers go in late September and everything. I think Kawhi starts January 1st, like ramping up, and then he's got 3 months or whatever. Yeah, you miss out on the awards and all that crap, but I think I'm willing to extend that plan to Joel Embiid now. January 1st, that's when his training camp starts.
I think that would be smart. That would be prudent of the Sixers, I think. Yeah, for sure. I wanted to ask you, because you had the Cavs up there pretty high. I think a lot of people are relatively down on the Cavs. Do you like, sort of them bringing back the same core four and just hiring Kenny Atkinson and hope he can figure it out? Like, what are your sort of expectations?
I hate that, but I just think they're regular season good.
Okay,
I think that is a team that wins in the regular season. But no, they should trade Jared Allen. They should trade Darius Garland. They should get a well-balanced roster. I like Kenny Atkinson, but I also, at no point last year did I watch the Cavs and think, God, their coach sucks. Like, I just like, that's not a JB Bickerstaff problem. That's a roster construction problem. And you're hearing, I mean, the Athletic did a lot of reporting around their elimination from the postseason. Like, that front office is not in great shape.
Yeah,
and
a lot came out, which is never a good sign when a lot of information comes out like that.
And not a lot got disputed either, so that's even worse.
Right, yeah, 100%. Well, let's wrap up. I want to ask you this, because this is a debate I've been having with a lot of my friends for quite some time now. So I wanted to get your take on it. Because you said that you think that they should trade Garland and sort of split this team up. What do you think about, we can talk about, picks thrown in on either side. What do you think about the idea of a Garland for Ingram swap? Because those are two guys that have been in a lot of trades.
You're wrong. I thought it was Allen for Ingram we're talking about.
Oh no, I've had all types of conversations about this, but
I think it was a better idea before they traded for DeJounte Murray.
Yeah.
If they, once they trade for DeJounte Murray, like I still probably would have said I'd rather trade Allen for Ingram. Because I think that helps both teams.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like mutually beneficial commensalism. I learned that in science class.
Sure, yeah, that's a $10 word right there.
Let's go.
Yeah, but I think you look at what DeJounte just went through with Trae Young. Like I think you would create some of the same problems in New Orleans if you put the two of them together. And then all right, McCollum's obviously got to go. So now where's he going? Like you can't have the three of them on the roster.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Allen one, I think, now that DeJounte's there, I think the Allen one maybe makes some more sense. Do you feel like that's like fair value though? Like, what else has to get thrown in for Allen for Ingram trade? It's tough because Ingram's on the expiring contract. I really can't gauge his value.
That's the thing. Without an extension, I'm like, yeah, that sounds good to me. You solve your big man issue. You put him. You move. Was Daniel Tice the guy now? So you move him to the backup role, which is where he should be anyway. To me, I get we get into you got to win the trade. If you make your team better, that's what you need to do. And not that Ingram is on the same level as Jared Allen, but that's a team that isn't looking for more wings. That is a team that needs a big man since JV went to Washington, and I would just even out the roster that way.
Yeah, it's fair. All right, well, Nate, unless you had anything else, I think that's all we had for you, Zach.
I'm pretty good. I think we All I needed to know was Jared Allen for Ingram trade. That's all. That was all that was on my mind. So
and go Knicks.
yeah,
That and
go
go
Knicks.
Knicks. Yeah. Let me throw something real quick. The Bounce free newsletter. The Athletic doesn't do a lot for free, but it is a free newsletter we do during the season, Monday through Friday. I write it with Shams Charania. Theathletic.com/abounce. Subscribe.
For sure. Yeah. Well, Zach, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. This
For
is
sure.
a big moment for the podcast to have a member of the Athletic on. So I really appreciate you taking out the time.
Trust me, it's only going up from here.
That's it for this episode. Thanks again to Zach Harper from The Athletic for coming on. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow on Instagram, on X, and on TikTok. Next episode's coming soon, but until then, be sure to check out the YouTube as well.